A cold wind whispers through the empty courtyards of the Red Keep, carrying the distant howl of a lone direwolf. Torches along the walls flicker, bowing to an unseen storm in the dark. In the pre-dawn gloom, the Red Keep holds its breath, as if the castle itself knows that fate is about to turn on a sword's edge. In another timeline, one choice changed everything. Welcome back to the alternate scrolls. Today we explore what might have happened if Ned Stark claimed the Iron Throne. In the pre-dawn hour of the Wolf, Lord Eddard Stark stands in the throne room of King's Landing, the weight of fate heavy on his shoulders. King Robert Baratheon lies dead, the realm on a knife's edge. Ned's grey eyes fix on the Iron Throne looming before him, its twisted blades casting jagged shadows like a beast's teeth. He knows the truth of Cersei Lannister's children. Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella are bastards born of incest, and that truth could destroy the kingdom or save it, depending on his next move. Eddard Stark has always been a man of honor, but honor alone will not shield the innocent now. For once, Ned sets aside mercy and decides to act swiftly. In this timeline, the direwolf dares to seize the lion's throne. Under cover of darkness, Ned gathers every ally he can trust within the Red Keep. Sir Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard stands at his side, drawn by duty to the realm. Renly Baratheon, Robert's brother, waits nearby in tense silence. He has offered Ned the strength of his own guards for what must be done. When the first pale hint of dawn touches the sky, they strike. Loyal Stark guards and Renly's men take the Red Keep's gates and armory in swift, silent maneuvers. The City Watch awakens to swords at their throats. Commander Janos Slynt, caught groggy and unprepared, yields the gold cloaks rather than lose his head. In one fell swoop, the Lannisters' hired knives are turned or neutralized. King's Landing belongs to Eddard Stark before the sun is fully risen. Queen Cersei Lannister is seized in her chambers as the city's gates fall. Her door bursts open to a rush of steel and direwolf sigils. Cersei, caught in her bedgown, reaches for a hidden dagger, but a northern sword is faster. She freezes as cold iron rests against her throat. Down the hall, her children are rounded up gently but firmly by Renly's loyal guards. Princess Myrcella and Prince Tommen cling to each other, frightened but unharmed, while Prince Joffrey, Robert's supposed heir, lashes out in blind fury. The golden-haired boy screams for his guards, for the Hound, for anyone, but no help comes. He is wrestled, kicking into custody. By sunrise, the Lannister lioness and her cubs are delivered to the throne room, under heavy guard, prisoners of the new order. Ned Stark strides into the throne room with grim purpose, ice in his veins. The great hall echoes as the doors boom shut behind him. In the eerie morning light, courtiers and servants gather at the edges, trembling and bleary-eyed, unsure whether they witness salvation or treason. Cersei is shoved to her knees before the Iron Throne. Her emerald eyes blaze with hatred, though fear flickers beneath her defiance. Joffrey stands beside her in chains, face red with indignation. Myrcella and Tommen sob quietly a few paces away, flanked by guards who keep them at a respectful distance. Grand Maester Pycelle wrings his hands near a column, and Lord Varys watches like a worried ghost. Petyr Baelish lurks in the shadows, calculating his next move now that the game has changed so dramatically. Ned produces the late king's sealed will, naming him protector of the realm. His voice rings out steady and commanding as he reads Robert's final words. The hall holds its breath. Then, Ned lifts his gaze and delivers the bombshell. Joffrey Baratheon is not the rightful heir. Gasps rip through the assembly. He recounts the evidence, lineages and Baratheon black-haired bastards, and proclaims that Cersei's children were born of Jaime Lannister's sin, not King Robert's blood. Cersei's face goes bone-pale. Her mask of pride cracks into panic as whispers surge around her. Joffrey howls in outrage, straining against his captors. "Lies! I'll have your head, Stark," he screeches, but his threats fall on deaf ears. Even the Lannister guards shuffle uneasily, uncertain now whom to obey. The truth, undeniable and terrible, drops like a sword between the Lannisters and the throne. For a heartbeat, the throne room is stunned silent. Then Renly Baratheon steps forward, eyes alight with sudden opportunity. He places a hand on his chest and declares that with Robert's true-born children disqualified, he should be king as Robert's next brother. A few voices murmur agreement. Renly is charismatic and present, while Stannis, Robert's elder brother, is far away on Dragonstone. But Ned raises a hand for silence. "Stannis Baratheon is Robert's rightful heir by law," Ned says, voice iron-strong. A flicker of frustration crosses Renly's face. He knows Stannis is a hard man who will win few friends, but Ned Stark will not ignore legitimacy. Renly's lips press thin, but he yields for now, swallowing his ambition in the face of Ned's resolve. Ned does not sit on the Iron Throne. Instead, he stands before it like a warden before a great beast. "Until Lord Stannis arrives to assume his crown," Ned announces, "I will act in Robert's stead to protect the realm." His declaration echoes in the vaulted hall. It is not a kingly boast, but a duty sworn before gods and men. The assembled lords and ladies bow their heads, accepting this stern wolf as protector, for now. With the coup complete, Ned wastes no time securing the realm. He sends ravens to Dragonstone, informing Lord Stannis of the situation and urging his return to claim the crown. Messengers fly north and to the Riverlands, calling Stark bannermen south. Ned knows the Lannisters will not take this blow lightly. Within the Red Keep, he forms a provisional council to maintain order. Peter Baelish pledges fealty with oily smiles. Varys offers soft words of support. Though Ned trusts few of them, he uses every resource at hand to prevent chaos. Cersei and her children remain confined under guard. Hostages treated gently, but watched night and day. The lion's den has been pacified, but a greater storm approaches from beyond the city walls. King's Landing awakens to a new reality. In the markets and alleys, tongues wag in disbelief. The Lannister lion has been caged, and a direwolf prowls the Red Keep. Fear of a bloody sack gives way to cautious optimism. Many remember Eddard Stark as the hand who tried to bring justice to the capital. Now he holds power, and remarkably, the streets run red with far less blood than anyone expected. The small folk begin to whisper a new name for their unlikely savior, the Quiet Wolf, a ruler who won the throne in a single night without unleashing slaughter. For once, it seems, a change in kings might not mean doom for the ordinary people of the realm. In the castle, Godswood that afternoon, Ned finally finds a moment to embrace his daughters. Sansa, who had been a pawn of Queen Cersei, runs to her father crying tears of joy and relief. Ned holds her close, stroking her auburn hair and whispering that she is safe now. No one will hurt her. Arya appears next, dirty and wide-eyed, her wooden practice sword needle still clutched in hand. She had been hiding in the chaos, ready to fight if needed. Ned sweeps Arya into his arms as well, murmuring thanks to the gods as both girls cling to him. For the first time in weeks, the Stark family is whole again in King's Landing. This victory alone, his children safe, is worth every risk he took. Far to the west, at the Lannister army's war camp on the Red Fork, Lord Tywin Lannister receives word of the dawn coup. The parchment in his hand trembles ever so slightly as he reads that his daughter the Queen and royal grandchildren are captives, and that Ned Stark holds King's Landing. Tywin's jaw tightens. The roar he suppresses turns into a deadly, frozen calm. At once, he orders his banners to redirect their march toward the capital. The Lannister host, which had been cutting a fiery swath through the Riverlands in retaliation for Tyrion's abduction by Catelyn Stark, now has a new mission: to rip Ned Stark from the Iron Throne and reclaim the Lannisters' kin. Ravens fly to Sir Jaime Lannister. Tywin's son was last reported leading a siege at River Run, commanding him to break off and unite their forces at Harrenhal. The war's focus shifts south. The Golden Lion of Casterly Rock will soon clash with the grey direwolf of Winterfell. As Tywin rallies the west, the north marches relentlessly south. Robb Stark, only 17 but now Lord of Winterfell in his father's absence, has called his banners. An army of fierce Northmen and loyal Riverlords crosses the Neck to aid Ned. Catelyn Stark meets her son at River Run, her childhood home under siege by Lannister forces. The sight of burned villages and terrified small folk seeking refuge in the castle steels Robb's resolve. He fords the twins after striking a grudging deal with old Walder Frey. Lord Walder only allows the crossing after extracting promises of future marriage and titles, a price Robb reluctantly agrees to, knowing such oaths can be addressed once victory is won. The northern host slips through the Riverlands with cunning, moving like a wolf pack to fell the lion's forces one by one. One moonless night, Robb sets a trap in the Whispering Wood near River Run. He lures Sir Jaime Lannister's vanguard into the dark forest. At Robb's signal, a torrent of Stark bannermen and outriders crashes in from all sides. The midnight silence erupts with direwolf howls and battle cries. Jaime Lannister fights ferociously, cutting down 2 men in a blur of gilded steel. But the Kingslayer is overwhelmed. Grey Wind, Robb's great direwolf, lunges from the shadows at Jaime's horse, throwing the knight to muddy ground. Within moments, dozens of Northerners swarm Jaime. He fights like a demon, but even the finest swordsman cannot defend every angle. A spear haft strikes the golden sword from his grip. A mailed fist knocks his helm askew. Bloody and furious, Jaime is forced to his knees. Breathing hard, he expects death. But Robb Stark pushes through the ring of warriors and raises a hand to halt the killing blow. The young wolf stands face to face with the Kingslayer, ice-blue eyes cold as the weirwood grove. "Yield," Robb says, and Jaime, prideful to the last, spits at the boy's feet. That defiance only seals his fate. Jaime Lannister is clapped in chains, a prisoner of House Stark. By dawn, the North holds the Lannisters' prize knight captive, and the balance of the war shifts dramatically. The capture of Jaime sends shockwaves through the Lannister camp. Lord Tywin halts his direct advance, and instead sends envoys under flag of truce. He offers negotiations, freedom for Jaime and Cersei's children's lives in exchange for peace. It's a desperate ploy to buy time. Ned responds that he will not harm innocents or lawful prisoners as long as Lannister forces refrain from further carnage. An uneasy stalemate settles. Tywin, ever the strategist, holds his army back at the massive ruins of Harrenhal, unwilling to risk his son's life in a reckless assault. He will wait for a better chance to strike. At Storm's End, beneath a moonless sky, Renly Baratheon's campaign meets a dark end. In his tent, as Renly shares a quiet cup of wine with his beloved knights, a shadow creeps in like a serpent of darkness. Brienne of Tarth, Renly's loyal guard, can only watch in horror as the formless black silhouette, shaped uncannily like Renly's own brother Stannis, reaches out and pierces Renly's chest. The young Baratheon king gasps, blood blooming on his gilded cuirass, and collapses before he can even draw his sword. By the time guards burst in, the shadow is gone, and Renly Baratheon lies dead, eyes wide in shock. His bannermen panic and flee, leaderless, while Brienne and Catelyn Stark escape into the night, falsely accused as the king's killers. The realm learns at dawn that the brightest stag has been felled by dark magic. Meanwhile, far to the east on Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon reads Ned's Raven by the light of guttering candles, his jaw clenched so tight it could crack. Robert's friend Eddard Stark holds the capital in trust, naming Stannis the heir. Yet in Stannis's eyes, Ned has claimed the spoils. At the urging of Melisandre, his Red Priestess, Stannis sees an unexpected path to his destiny. The Lord of Light clears the way. Renly's shocking demise removes the largest obstacle to Stannis's claim. Many of Renly's Stormlords, leaderless and frightened by rumors of sorcery, now reluctantly turn to Stannis as the last Baratheon. The great House Tyrell, however, outraged by Renly's mysterious murder, withdraws its support from Stannis. Instead, the Reach looks to align with the stabilizing force in King's Landing, Eddard Stark and his promise of lawful order. In King's Landing, Ned Stark fortifies the city for the coming siege. He has the mudgate braced with heavy oak and iron, sharpened stakes and caltrops arrayed outside the walls, and pitch and oil stockpiled to rain fire on attackers. Though he despises the word wildfire, Ned even orders the Alchemists' Guild to bring forth their cache of Mad King Aerys's accursed green flame. He prays he will never have to use such a weapon, but he will not leave any blade sheathed when the fate of thousands hangs in the balance. As word arrives that Stannis' fleet has set sail from Dragonstone, the capital holds its breath. On Ned's command, the city's bells fall silent. The time for flight is over, and those who remain hunker down behind the walls, anxious and afraid. On the eve of battle, Ned walks through the darkened keep to the small godswood within. There, beneath the pale face carved in the weirwood trunk, he kneels and whispers a prayer to his old gods of the north. He asks for strength to protect the innocent come dawn. The night wind stirs the leaves as if in answer. Ned rises, resolve hardening like steel in his chest. The final battle for King's Landing is about to begin. Stannis Baratheon comes at dawn beneath a slate-grey sky. His war fleet sails black with the crowned stag sigil, anchors in Blackwater Bay like a dark cloud upon the sea. From the city ramparts, Ned watches ships disgorge rowing longboats full of soldiers in gleaming steel. Stannis' forces land on the south bank of the Blackwater Rush, under cover of heavy fog and the dim morning light. Soon, siege towers and scaling ladders gather on the shores below King's Landing's walls. Across the river, countless orange campfires dot the night from Stannis' encampment, a constellation of war glittering against the darkness. The grinding of wooden wheels and the distant clatter of armor echo over the water as the one-time master of ships prepares to take the city by force. Battle erupts with the sunrise. Stannis' fleet rows into the Blackwater Rush and is met by a hail of flaming arrows from the city walls. Unseen until too late, a giant boom chain is raised across the river, trapping many of Stannis' ships in the channel. On his flagship Fury, Stannis himself stands at the prow, jaw set in grim determination, even as wildfire bursts into existence around him. He will advance or die trying, and his men take heart from his unwavering silhouette amid the hellish jade glow. At Ned's signal, jars of wildfire are launched by catapult, shattering on the bay with green eruptions of unnatural flame. The water itself ignites in emerald fury, consuming ships and men alike and turning early morning into nightmare. Men scream as Stannis' vanguard is engulfed. Yet through sheer resolve or fanaticism, some of Stannis' troops press on. Dozens of longboats manage to land at the mudgate, and armored soldiers pour onto the shores, shields raised against the arrows and stones raining from the battlements. They batter at the gate with a massive ram. Thud, thud, crack. The oak beams shudder with each blow. Ned fights atop the ramparts among his men, sword flashing as he strikes down a scaling ladder full of attackers. A knight in fiery heart armor scrambles up another ladder. Ned slashes him down and kicks the ladder back into the moat. Below, the mudgate splinters, and a portion of it crashes inward. Stannis' soldiers surge through the breach with a triumphant howl, but inside, barricades of wagons and rubble force the attackers into a narrow killing ground. Sir Barristan Selmy stands fast at the forefront, sword shining as he holds the line with old Kingsguard valor. He cuts down man after man in a blur of white cloak and steel. Bodies pile against the broken gate as each invader is cut down in turn. Still, more press in behind, too many to hold for long. Despite valiant efforts, Grey Worm of the Unsullied holding the gap until he's dragged down by a pile of writhing wights, and Ser Jorah Mormont, falling with exhaustion as he defends his queen. The line of the living buckles. It seems the dawn will never come. Just as the fight grows desperate, salvation arrives. A great horn sounds from the north road, and another answers from the south. Through drifting smoke, banners emerge on both flanks of Stannis' forces. From the north, grey direwolf flags of House Stark lead a column of cavalry and fierce northern berserkers. Robb Stark has come. From the south, golden roses of Highgarden and silver trout of Riverrun appear. The Tyrells and Tully Bannermen, spurred by Renly's death and Littlefinger's promises, have joined the fray on Ned's side. Stannis' men falter in confusion as armored knights slam into their rear. The attackers at the gate suddenly find themselves caught between the city's ferocious defenders and fresh enemy riders crashing into their backs. Within minutes, the assault turns to rout. Surrounded and overwhelmed, Stannis' troops break. Many throw down their weapons and flee toward the burning bay, only to be cut down or drown in wildfire-choked waters. Stannis Baratheon himself is dragged away by his remaining guards, an arrow in his thigh and fury contorting his face as he's forced onto a skiff to retreat. The dawn sky is black with smoke and red with reflected fire, but King's Landing still stands. Against all odds, Eddard Stark has defended the Iron Throne from the Baratheon onslaught. When the battle din finally fades, King's Landing erupts in cheers. Eddard Stark descends from the ramparts, weary and soot-streaked, to find his son. Robb meets his father amid the charred ruins outside the gate, and Ned pulls the young wolf into a tight embrace. For a moment, neither cares who watches. Father and son are reunited and victorious. Nearby, Lord Mace Tyrell approaches on horseback with his bannermen, and Ned offers sincere thanks to the Lord of Highgarden for the timely intervention. In that moment, a new alliance is sealed, the Reach and the North united to restore peace. The direwolf and the golden rose banners fly side by side above the blood-soaked field, signaling a decisive turn in the War of Kings. Defeat hangs heavy on the Lannisters. Upon hearing of Stannis' rout and the Stark Tyrell victory, Lord Tywin Lannister realizes his gamble has failed. At the ensuing surrender on the field, Tywin Lannister himself is forced to bend the knee to Ned Stark. The proud old lion lowers his head with barely restrained malice, but Ned shows no triumph, only a solemn promise of justice, tempered with mercy. He spares Tywin's life and banishes him back to Casterly Rock to live out his days far from court. Cornered and outnumbered, Tywin sues for peace rather than see King's Landing sacked by his foes. Under the shadow of surrender, envoys from all the great houses gather in the Red Keep's throne room to decide the realm's future. With Robert's brothers dead or in exile, and the Lannisters humbled, the choice is clear. One by one, great lords step forward to proclaim their support. Sir Brynden Tully speaks for the Riverlands in place of his ailing brother Hoster, the great Jon Umber for the north, Mace Tyrell for the Reach. Even a raven from Sunspear carries Prince Doran Martell's assent. Soon all present shout their agreement. Eddard Stark, the quiet wolf who never sought a crown, is proclaimed King of the Seven Kingdoms by unanimous acclaim. He accepts a simple circlet of dark iron as his crown. Ned has no taste for gold and rubies, and bows his head as the High Septon intones the blessings of the Seven. In the gallery, Sansa smiles through happy tears, while Arya has to be gently elbowed by her sister, not to cheer aloud during the solemn moment. Thus, in the ashes of war, Ned Stark assumes the burden of rule for the sake of the realm's peace. In the days following the council, the capital erupts in celebration. No more do Lannister Reds parade the streets with menace. Northern direwolves and Reach roses share patrol duty, even handing out bread to hungry children. A royal feast is held in the Red Keep's yard, open to highborn and commoner alike. It is not a lavish affair of gilded singers and golden chalices, but a humble thanksgiving. The small folk cheer themselves hoarse for King Stark, a name strange yet hopeful on their tongues. Ned endures the applause with a modest nod, far more at ease speaking with carpenters about rebuilding homes than sitting on a throne. In taverns and septs across the city, people raise a toast to the new peace. For the first time in memory, King's Landing sleeps without fear of the morrow. King Eddard's reign begins in the aftermath of chaos. Ned moves swiftly to dispense justice and mercy in turn. He frees Jaime Lannister on parole, trading the Kingslayer back to his family in exchange for solemn oaths of fealty and the release of any Stark captives. Many of the previous regime's vipers are removed. Grand Maester Pycelle is stripped of his chain and sent to the Citadel in disgrace, and Peter Baelish vanishes from the city rather than face the king's justice. But Ned also spares those who were merely following orders. The realm, long starved for honor, finds it at last in this new Stark king, who would sooner forgive than punish when he can. For Cersei Lannister, however, there is no clemency. The fallen queen is formally tried for treason, adultery, and the murder of King Robert. Cersei, proud to the bitter end, demands trial by combat. But no knight in Westeros will fight for her now. Her brother Jaime is bound by his word of honor, and Sir Gregor Clegane, her dread mountain, is long dead by Stark justice. With no champion, Cersei's guilt is judged by the throne. The evidence is overwhelming and her crimes laid bare. Ned carries out the sentence himself on a cold morning outside the Baelor's Sept, an execution done in the North's clean tradition. With one sure stroke of the greatsword ice, he ends Cersei's life. The Lioness of Lannister meets her fate with a final glare, and as her golden head falls to the dust, the last true threat to Ned's family is gone. It is a grim duty, but the city breathes easier, knowing the cruel queen will trouble the realm no more. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen hears startling news. The usurper King Joffrey is overthrown, and a new king, a Stark, rules in King's Landing. Her 3 young dragons, growing larger by the day, screech and wheel above her shoulder, as if sensing change on the wind. At her side stands Tyrion Lannister, the fugitive dwarf who slipped away from Westeros during the chaos of his family's fall. He has gambled everything on joining the Targaryen queen's cause. Tyrion counsels caution, explaining in his dry drawl that Eddard Stark has a sterling reputation, a just man who has united Westeros under his steady hand. The small folk aren't begging for liberation under Ned Stark's rule. In fact, they might even fight for him. Daenerys furrows her brow at this counsel. She is no longer the frightened girl who once dreamed only of revenge. She is the mother of dragons, breaker of chains, and she is driven by destiny to reclaim her birthright. With or without the people's support, she will not abandon her claim. So Daenerys Stormborn gathers her forces, with the Unsullied at her command, Dothraki blood riders at her back, and 3 dragons spiraling overhead. She sets sail for Westeros. Yet in her heart she wonders, will she arrive as a liberator to join a just king, or as a conqueror to smite a usurper? Even as King's Landing celebrates peace, the Iron Islands stir with old ambition. Balon Greyjoy declares himself king of salt and rock once more, and launches a surprise attack on the north, hoping to take advantage of mainland upheaval. But this time, the north is not distracted. King Eddard had anticipated Balon's move. He left a strong garrison in the north, under the formidable Lady Mormont and the young Lord Bran Stark's guardianship. The Ironborn raiders are met with steel and fury along the stony shore. Balon's own heir, Theon Greyjoy, who was raised as Ned Stark's ward, chooses honor over blood. When his father's men strike at Torrhen Square, Theon turns on the raiders and saves Winterfell from being overrun. The Greyjoy rebellion collapses as quickly as it began, snuffed out by Stark loyalty and preparation. Balon Greyjoy's defeat sends a firm message. The new king in the north and south will suffer no opportunistic rebellions in his realm. All the while, in the far north, Jon Snow and the Night's Watch face their own battle. Free folk hordes under Mance Rayder assault the wall, fleeing something even more terrifying behind them. Castle Black stands its ground through a bitter siege. Jon fights bravely atop the ice, rallying his black-cloaked brothers, and even negotiating a truce with wildling leader Tormund when the dead begin stirring in the woods beyond. At the height of the assault, riders bearing the direwolf sigil charge out of the northern mist. Ned Stark has sent a relief force from Winterfell to aid the watch. Bolstered by fresh swords, the Night's Watch repels the wildling invasion without the wall falling. Mance Rayder is captured and, to the surprise of many, King Eddard decrees that the free folk who fought beside the watch shall not be cast back into the cold. Instead, they are allowed through the wall to settle the Giftlands peacefully. Foes no more, but new allies within the realm. Jon Snow, scarred but triumphant, is hailed as a hero by the watch. Yet even as the crows breathe a sigh of relief, Jon gazes into the haunted forest and knows the real war, against the others, is only beginning. Deep winter descends on Westeros. Ominous reports creep down from beyond the wall. Blue-eyed corpses roaming the woods, entire villages found frozen and empty. King Eddard does not dismiss these as wild tales. He calls his banners once more, this time not for war between men, but for the war to save all men. Ravens fly to every corner of the 7 kingdoms, urging unity against the coming darkness. Jon Snow, now a trusted leader in the Night's Watch, sends word detailing what he has seen. The White Walkers are real, and they are on the march. This dire news coincides with Queen Daenerys' landing on the shores of Dragonstone. Rather than challenge her as a foe, Ned sends an emissary inviting Daenerys to meet and witness the true enemy threatening them all. In the courtyard of Winterfell, beneath swirling snow, the Wolf King and the Dragon Queen come face to face. Daenerys arrives with Drogon perched behind her, like a looming ebony mountain, while two smaller dragons circle and screech overhead. Ned eyes the silver-haired young queen warily, remembering all too well the madness of her father Aerys. But Daenerys's violet gaze is clear and determined. She, in turn, sizes up the solemn northerner who helped overthrow her dynasty. In Ned Stark's scarred face, she finds honesty and steadiness, not cruelty. Between them stands a rusted cage, holding a single shrieking wight, an undead wildling, captured by a ranger's brave sortie. At the sight of the snarling corpse, Daenerys's blood runs cold. Together, Ned Stark and Jon Snow calmly explain the coming long night and the army of the dead. By torchlight in the godswood, Daenerys listens intently, fear and resolve mixing in her expression. She understands her war for the throne must pause, for this war, the war for the living, is far greater. Moved by Ned's candor, she offers her dragons and armies to the cause. Wolf and dragon set aside any feud over the crown. In that snow-laden godswood, they swear a pact to unite all kingdoms against the darkness beyond the wall. The armies of the living assemble at Winterfell, forming a last bastion against the Night King's onslaught. Under an iron-grey sky blowing flurries of snow, unsullied spearmen stand shoulder to shoulder, with northern pikemen along the fortress walls. Dothraki screamers and Vale knights await on the frosted fields, their breath misting in the bitter air. Archers from every kingdom line the battlements, flaming arrows nocked. 3 dragons perch along the ramparts, growling impatiently at the encroaching cold. In the distance, an unnatural chill spreads across the plain, turning the muddy ground to iron. Then, through the swirling snow, the army of the dead crashes upon them. Wights shriek and hurl themselves at the defenses in endless waves. Once men, giant wights, and skeletal beasts swarming with merciless intent. Dragonfire lights up the darkness as Daenerys swoops overhead on Drogon, roasting entire ranks of dead with torrents of flame. Scores of wights burn, but for every one that falls, 2 more claw their way forward. The living wield Valyrian steel and dragonglass weapons from Dragonstone's forges. Jon Snow leads a cavalry sortie beyond the fires, longclaw in hand. He cleaves a White Walker in half, and a swath of wights around it collapses into lifelessness. Hope sparks at the sight. The enemy's lieutenants can be killed. Nearby, Sir Jaime Lannister fights beside the stalwart Brienne of Tarth. Wielding a freshly forged Valyrian sword, Jaime cuts down a frosty White Walker with one left-handed stroke, proving that even a once-disgraced knight can find redemption defending the living. But victory is far from assured. A piercing, inhuman screech tears through the night sky. The Night King himself descends, riding the undead dragon Viserion. The ice-blue flames of the fallen dragon strafe the battlements, exploding stone and sending soldiers tumbling. One of Daenerys's smaller dragons, Rhaegal, dives to challenge his undead sibling and is wounded, spiraling away with a mournful cry. At a dread gesture from the Night King, the slain from both sides stir once more. The fallen from the battlefield, friend and foe alike, jerk upright with glowing blue eyes, swelling the ranks of the dead. As their own comrades rise against them, a ripple of despair sweeps through the living lines. They cannot withstand another wave. The Night King's mount blasts the main gates with icy flame, and ancient Winterfell shudders. The walls are breached in several places as entire sections of ice and stone crumble under the onslaught. Despite valiant efforts, Sir Davos Seaworth rallying survivors on the ramparts, and the Hound overcoming his dread of fire, long enough to hack down wights to protect Arya. The circle of living defenders grows ever smaller. It seems the endless night is moments from swallowing the last light of hope. In the aftermath of the long night, a great funeral is held outside Winterfell's walls. Thousands of bodies, friends and foes alike, are laid upon pyres stretching across the field. The living gather somberly as Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen each touch a torch to a pyre, starting the ceremony. Orange flames roar into the icy air, turning night into day once more. The survivors watch in silence, faces flickering in the firelight, whispering farewell to brothers, sisters, and comrades. Samwell Tarly, once a timid steward of the Night's Watch, now a hardened warrior, stands beside Gilly and little Sam, vowing through tears that these heroes will not be forgotten. As the firelight dances in his gentle eyes, he silently promises to record each name for history. "We will remember them," Ned Stark says quietly. And all around, people echo the promise. In that solemn moment, the differences of past and station melt away. There are only the living, honoring the dead as one people. Late that night, after the funeral fires burn low, Ned finds Jon Snow atop Winterfell's battlements, gazing at the stars. They stand in silence for a long while, a father and son by bond, if not by blood. At last, Ned places a hand on Jon's shoulder. "Your mother and father would be proud of you," he says softly. Jon looks up in surprise. Ned has rarely spoken of Jon's mother. Ned's eyes shine with meaning that Jon only begins to grasp. "You've made me proud as well, Jon. More than I can say." Jon's throat tightens with emotion. In Ned's grey gaze, he sees acceptance and love, plain at last. Jon nods, unable to speak, and Ned pulls him into a brief embrace. On that battlement, all walls between them fall. In that moment, Jon Snow feels truly part of a family. Whatever tomorrow brings, he knows he has a place and a purpose. Ned's choice so many years ago to raise him as a Stark, to protect Lyanna's boy, has led to this. A promise kept and a protector of the realms of men forged. In the days that follow, Westeros begins to heal. The Great War is won at terrible cost, but from the ashes of sacrifice blooms a fellowship among once sundered kingdoms. Around a weirwood table in Winterfell's great hall, King Eddard Stark shares bread and salt with Queen Daenerys Targaryen. They celebrate not a political victory, but the survival of mankind. Titles and claims matter less now. What matters is rebuilding what was nearly lost. The North and South work in concert as never before. Robb Stark weds Marguerite Tyrell with the realm's blessing, binding House Stark and House Tyrell in lasting alliance. At King's Landing, Ned honors the memory of his friend Robert by legitimizing the late king's bastard Gendry as a true Baratheon. The humble smith's apprentice is stunned to find himself named Lord of Storm's End, charged with restoring his father's fallen house with the same integrity with which he forges steel. The Unsullied and Northmen together rebuild the war-torn castles of the north, while Dothraki horsemen lend their strength to plough fields and escort supply wagons in the Reach. King Eddard decrees that the free folk from beyond the wall, who bled alongside everyone else, shall have the right to settle in the gift south of the wall. Enemies no more, but new citizens of the realm. There is even talk of a council of lords, and perhaps common folk, who might choose future kings to prevent the bloody wheel of war from ever turning again. Under Ned's just hand and Daenerys' passionate guidance, Westeros sees the dawn of a new era of cooperation and hope. By the turn of the moon, the citadel's white ravens fly across the land, proclaiming the long winter's end and the hope of spring. One crisp morning at King's Landing, Ned Stark stands atop the ramparts of the Red Keep, watching the sun rise over a realm he never expected to rule. Warm light spills across the city's rooftops and the distant waters of Blackwater Bay. Below him, The sounds of ordinary life drift up. Blacksmiths hammering steel, vendors calling their wares in the streets, children chasing each other across the yard. Each simple melody, a testament to a world restored. He reflects on all it took to arrive at this fragile peace. The friends lost and enemies redeemed, the alliances forged in fire, and the bravery of his children. He thinks of his sister Lyanna, and how the promise he made at her deathbed to protect her infant son, Jon, has been kept. That boy, now grown, fought beside him to save their world. A lesser man might call it destiny, but Ned knows it came down to choices. On that fateful day in King's Landing, he chose to claim the Iron Throne not for glory, but to shield the innocent. That single choice set in motion a chain of events that saved the realm from darkness. Ned closes his eyes and whispers a silent thank you to the old gods and the new. In the yard below, he hears Arya's laughter as she spars with young Lord Gendry Baratheon, and Sansa's gentle voice guiding a group of children at their lessons. He shares a friendly nod with Tyrion Lannister, now a trusted advisor, as the dwarf trades japes with Sir Davos Seaworth while overseeing the rebuilding of the royal fleet. Sir Jaime Lannister, clad in the white cloak of the Kingsguard by his own humble request, paces the castle gates below. A once wayward knight now fiercely devoted to protecting the king he once sought to betray. The direwolf of Stark and the dragon of Targaryen flutter side by side on banners in the morning breeze. The long night has passed, and true spring has come at last to Westeros, all because one honorable man had the courage to make a choice that changed fate. Thank you for watching The Alternate Scrolls. If you enjoyed this journey through fire and fate, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more alternate stories.